everyone. It didn't look like we had anyone that was able to make it for today's optional Teams meeting, and that's okay. I went ahead and recorded a little something for you for those who could not make it, but would have liked to. So that's completely understandable. This is an online class, 100% online, and so we don't have any set meeting times. Not a problem. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this week. So first off, I want to talk about what is due on Monday, get that out of the way. Then I want to review the accounting and financial information that was last week, chapter 17. And the reason why I want to review that is, first of all, accounting and financial information is important. You're going to take other classes and you're going to need this information. So it doesn't hurt to review it, even though you've already completed it. Studies show that it takes 7 times for us to retain things into our memory. So this is just one more opportunity for us to retain that accounting information. Certainly we'll need that in the future if you're taking other business classes and accounting classes, of course. And then also we'll talk about that final project. Let's take a look at the course. I'm going to scroll down so you can see last week we finished up chapter 17. I'm actually going to move that now that I'm here. Give me a moment while I move that out of the way. And we will continue. So we come on in and you'll see the class recordings up here. Chapter 18, that's due Monday, the 25th. Then you have Thanksgiving break. I do give you that entire break for you to go ahead and enjoy that week. And so a lot of your teachers don't do that, actually. I think, well, some do. Actually, one of the instructors in our department doesn't give any breaks at all on the online environment. Now, in the in-person classes, they do. They have to because the college is closed. But for her online classes, her due dates are on Sunday, and the college is never closed on Sunday, is it? So she actually does not give any time off during the semester, which I need a break. So I don't know about her, but I need that break. So it's twofold. I provide you that break because obviously we're going 16, 18 weeks. It's well deserved. You all work really hard, number one. And number two, I like that break as well. So I give you the break at fall when we have the fall break. I think there's a couple days off there. I just give you that whole week off. And then I give you the whole week off at Thanksgiving. And yeah, I hope you enjoy that, by the way. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the getting started. I always go to the getting started area. And I know a lot of you are probably not looking at this, and I need to do a better job going forward. In the old Blackboard, information was set up differently. And so I think it was maybe a little bit more clear where to find things, especially when it comes to the late work policy and attendance policy, buying the textbook. Now it's all in here, absolutely, and a lot of you found it, but I also realized that some of you did have a hard time finding it, um, and it's because of the new Blackboard and how it's set up. So I will do a better job communicating that going forward. But again, it has been here the whole time. I just need you as students to be accountable and look in this getting started area to find all of the different things that can affect your grade in this class, right? That has to do with the syllabus, calendars, and of course the late work policy and attendance policy. Let's take a look at the calendar. So I like this calendar feature. Well, it's more of a document. I use it as a checklist. So as I go through the semester, I can go ahead and see exactly what I have to do and what we have. So this week, as we go through, some of you might have access to print it out. I'm old school. Studies show that things on paper actually are retained to our memory. I'm seeing a lot of trends going back to the old fashioned calendar, journaling, writing. I see it on, TikToks. I've seen the old fashioned calendars and planners coming back, which is fantastic. There's a reason why our brains can manage and process information better on paper than we can digitally. So that will obviously change, but evolution has to take place. Our brains have been developed to look at paper or things visually, whether it's, on tablets way back in the day, thousands of years ago, or actually in a textbook. That's how our brains have been developed for the course of our whole existence. And so we went from paper to digital almost overnight, and our brains haven't adapted to that yet. And studies show that when we read things online, when we look at an article or even a textbook online, we're having a more difficult time processing that information. And obviously a lot of it depends on our attention span, but I know for me, I have a really hard time when I'm looking at an article. My daughter, she's in school and she's reading articles and then journal articles and doing book reports and different things. And a lot of her articles are on the computer. It's digital, and we do it together. And I find myself uh, having a hard time focusing as well, just because of the need to just kind of like scroll through and find the information versus if I had it printed out. Anyway, I digress. Let's go ahead and look at what we need to look at. So what is due Monday? Well, first of all, you have the chapter 18, which is financial management. That is the homework, quiz, and assignment. There is a written assignment there. So homework, quiz, and assignment. Most of you at this point, actually all of you at this point, are having no issues with the homework and the assignment, getting them in, and the quizzes. Great job. The only issue I'm having at this point is I'm just going to beat this dead horse. There are a few of you that are using the text box and or using the URL link for your OneDrive. Can't say this enough. Those are not allowed. So I know I made quite a few announcements, and I'll move on. I digress. All right, so we have that due, and then you have Thanksgiving break, and then your final assessment or final assignment due the following Monday, the 9th. All right, let's take a look. So chapter 18. First, we have our outcomes and our weekly tasks in here. We have the learning objectives. I'm not going to read the screen to you. You can look at that, but the module overview is here, and then your assigned tasks to complete. In addition to that, we have chapter 18 materials. So there's a video here. What is financial management? And then also SBA funding your business. You'll need that in a different assignment as well, but you can look at that here. And then your homework and your quiz goes right to the McGraw-Hill. And then finally your written assignment. Now your written assignment can be turned in late. Written assignments are the only things that can be turned in late. And that's mostly because it's worth a lot more points. So I always get questions as to why can I not turn in the quiz or the other things late, and why can I do the discussion board? Well, first of all, the discussion board is supposed to take place in the classroom. So if you have a class participation grade and you're absent, you miss out on that class participation grade, right? So a discussion board is the same thing. If I didn't have, if I allowed people to turn that in late, we might have half the class not do the discussion board, and that takes away from the learning of the other students who did it on time, since there's not a lot of discussion going on. So discussion board assignments are very rare. I've never met a teacher or an instructor at Wake Tech that allows discussion board assignments to be turned in late, unless they allow everything to be turned in late. You have some professors who just allow everything to be turned in late for a lower grade. But again, I like to structure my class in such a way that it emulates the business world, and due dates are what they are, right? So the class has been open since August, and I encourage you to work ahead. Now, a lot of students have the tendency to wait for an assignment to be due before they start on the work. They might start on it Monday night or Monday afternoon, and then they have problems, either technical problems with their computers, the internet glitches, they're sick, they don't feel well, just a slew of different reasons why work can't be done on a certain due date. And I really want you to change your mindset, because life gets lifey, and things come up, obstacles come up all the time. One of the things I try to tell my students is that you have to start thinking about these due dates no longer as due dates. They're no later than dates. And so again, this module has been open since August, and you've had plenty of time to work on it. And you have to think about those dates as being no later than dates. So I have no later than Monday the 25th to finish my chapter 18 assignment. So that's, if you think about it like that, deadline dates versus due dates, hopefully you can be a little bit more proactive. All right, so this week, what you're going to do is you're going to submit a detailed business plan. One of the things I want to talk a little bit about is right down here. So I feel like this is a little bit more of a complicated assignment. And so I help you out by letting you know where you can find the information uh, to this. And so learning objective 1, for instance, 3 and 5 are really great areas. And you can go ahead and look at that. I'm sorry, not a business plan. That's I was thinking about the final project. Um, I meant in my head, I was thinking about how to seek funding, how to secure funds, but I said business plan instead. But anyway, you know what you know where I'm coming from, right? So a detailed outline planning on how you would secure funds for your proposed business. One of the things I want to just point out again, no text submissions and or you'll are links to OneDrive and should be around 750 words, 2 full pages. Let's quickly review accounting information. Yes, let's talk about accounting and financial information from last week. So first off, why is accounting so important? Why do we have it not only covered in this class, but then we have a whole series of classes dedicated to accounting and business? It's really simple. Accounting is similar to a business language, right? So we all have different slang. We all have different vernacular. I can go, if you were to walk into a middle school right now, if you have younger siblings, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They have their own language, right? I don't even know what my daughter's saying half the time. I have to look it up, making sure she's not saying anything inappropriate. No, she's not. But the slang today is absolutely interesting to say the least. However, they understand each other, right? And so accounting is similar to that. You know, every generation had its own slang. Millennials, boomers, Gen X, Gen Z, all have different slang, and it's how you communicate. Well, accounting is no different. It has its own language as well. I think, you know, accounting slang might not be as fun and exciting as the slang that we're used to. However, once you understand it, it actually will make a lot of sense. And so accounting represents all the financial transactions in a business, and it's really put in a format that we can understand it and see how we're doing financially, both internally and externally. We can take this information and we can use it internally. So managers can make decisions based on how they're doing financially. They can hire more people or maybe let people go. And we can also let the public know how we're doing financially as well. I'm not going to go through all of this information with you. You learned a lot about it last week, but I also want to talk about the different types of accounting. Now, your textbook talks about 5 different types of accounting. I want to talk about just the 3 because technically auditing and government nonprofit accounting isn't its own type of accounting. So there are 3 types of accounting: financial, tax, and managerial accounting. And then there are auditing processes, which is not its own accounting. It's its own process, if you will, and then accounting for government and nonprofit accounting, but it's still the same accounting as financial, tax, and managerial. It's just for government and nonprofits as well. So let's talk a little bit about the different types of accounting, why it's important you to know the differences, and then how to distinguish between them. So first of all, the first accounting we're going to talk about is financial accounting, which is really just the process of preparing financial statements that companies are going to use outside of the organization to show their financial performance. And it's pretty much a standard format. They take this information and they provide it to different types of people outside of the organization. Some could be the IRS, some could be investors. There's different things. You can also use those reports internally as well. You don't have to create your own types of reporting, but a lot of times companies do, just to make it a little bit more easier for managers to read. All right, so you have financial accounting, which is outside of the organization, and then managerial accounting, which is the internal, inside the organization. We'll talk about managerial accounting in just a moment. All right, so when it comes to accounting, we use generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP, and it's really just a set of uniform rules that companies go by. So you can compare apples to apples, because I don't know if you remember when you first learned math way back when, we had this thing called order of operations, right? And so the order of operations in math is similar to the accounting principles of GAAP. There's a standard way to do things, because if you don't do them in a certain order, you might get different answers. So if companies were to just do their accounting any way they wanted, they could portray the information inaccurately. And you could be comparing oranges to apples. I hope that makes sense. So let's take this simple explanation. So in math, again, we have an order of operations. And so if you didn't know the order of operations, you might just go left to right here. You might do 50 plus 10 is 60, times 0 is 0, plus 7 is 7. However, if you remember your order of operations, that's not how we do math. What we do is we do the multiplication first. So 10 times 0 is 0. Then we do division, we don't have any there, and then addition and subtraction, and we only have addition and subtraction. So we would go from 50 plus 0 plus 7 equals 57. So if I just went left to right, I would get 7, but if I do the order of operations, I get 57. And accounting principles are the same thing. It just, they're a lot more in depth than that, of course, but there is a rules to how we can portray that financial information. Now, when it comes to financial accounting, there are 4 financial statements that are imperative. So we have the income statement, the balance sheet, the cash flow statement, and the statement of retained earnings. And so most companies put these together, maybe monthly, quarterly, definitely annually, to make it available to shareholders and the public. Again, these financial statements are coming from financial accounting. I'm not going to go through each of those, but you learned about those, and you certainly will learn about those more in your accounting classes. Now, a second type of accounting is tax accounting. So tax accounting is its own type of accounting practice. My dad happens to be a CPA and has his own firm specializing in small business tax accounting. That's because our tax laws in this country are, I want to say, challenging. They just like to change, and they change every few years. And sometimes they're complicated, and sometimes they're not. But at the end of the day, tax accountants look at and help businesses make sure that they are paying the appropriate taxes to the government. All right, so tax accounting, again, is that sector that deals with preparations of tax returns and tax payments. It can be for businesses, big corporations, small corporations, and even us individuals. If you've ever had a job, you know that you have to pay taxes on your wages, right? So tax accounting just can be for anyone, whether it's an individual or a large business. Now, obviously, for a large business, it's a lot more complex. Individually, some of us will file our own taxes. We don't need an accountant to do that, especially if you have just a simple return. But companies, it's a little bit different, because companies have a lot of different laws and regulations that they have to oversee and adhere to. So managerial accounting, the last type of accounting, is again similar to financial accounting. It's taking that information, but it's being used internally. And so what a lot of times what larger corporations do is they have a department that takes the information from the financial accounting department, and then they translate it for managers. They simplify it, in other words, and they give that information to different people throughout the organization so that they can make informed decisions based on how the company is doing financially. It really helps them say, okay, well, we're doing well financially, and because of that, now I can hire and give raises. Now, there is a difference between bookkeeping and accounting and being an accountant. Just because you take classes and get a degree in accounting doesn't mean you're actually an accountant. So let's talk about that, because I talk to a lot of students who want to be accountants. It sounds really interesting. They love numbers, they love crunching numbers, and it pays well, by the way. But in addition to that, let's talk about what the differences are for those students who may want to take up accounting as a career. Or first off, to be an accountant, an official accountant, just level 1 accountant, these are the following requirements. It's almost like being a nurse or a doctor or a lawyer. You have to have certain requirements that are met in order to get that title. So first, you need a bachelor's degree. For a level 1 accountant, a bachelor's degree that's needed. 1 or more professional accounting services or experience needs to be done. So you need to get your degree in accounting or finance. Then you have to go work for a firm for a year, usually as an apprentice role or an entry level. They don't call you an accountant, but you'll get that experience through them. And then you have to go take some tests. So let's talk about that in just a moment. But a bookkeeper is someone who does accounting work. They might do the same work as an accountant, but it's they don't have the expertise and the certifications needed. And it doesn't mean that a bookkeeper is any less knowledgeable. It just means that they don't they don't have the same title, if that makes sense. And a lot of times, to be honest with you, bookkeepers are the ones that are doing a lot of the work. And it's the accountants that kind of oversee and manage the process, but the bookkeepers are the ones that are actually doing the process, the mechanical process of all the routine economic activities in a business. Now, requirements to be a CPA, a certified public accountant, which is kind of the next level up. You take a CPA exam similar to a bar exam. It's very intense. Take a CPA exam. You have to have 150 credit hours. Do the math on that. 150 credit hours concentrating with a concentration in accounting. And so that you don't necessarily have, there's a misconception that you have to have a master's degree in accounting. You don't have to have a master's degree in accounting, and you certainly don't have to have a master's degree, but you need to have 150 credit hours with a concentration in accounting to be considered a public accountant. So a lot of them do have a master's degree, because 120 is a bachelor's degree, and then the 30 is your master's degree. You also, of course, need to have 1 year experience and 8 hours of an accounting law course every year. All right, so these key financial statements, the income statement, the statement of owner's equity, the balance sheet, and the statement of cash flows. Again, these are all statements that the financial accountants departments create for outside of the company. And you learned a little bit about the accounting equation, which is assets minus liability equals equity. So your assets is anything that you have tangible, whether it's cash, it could be your vehicles, your building, your equipment, anything that you have there, minus your liabilities. And liabilities can be, you know, things that are obliged elsewhere. Loans, for instance, are a really good example. So think about owning your car. So most of us, the car is the asset. Let's say you bought a new car. I'm just going to use figures of $10,000. You buy a new car for $10,000. I know they're a lot more expensive these days. And then you take a loan amount out for $5,000. That means your asset is $10,000. Your liability is $5,000. So your equity would then be $5,000. So that is the accounting equation. So the break-even point, that's where the point of a business breaks even, literally breaks even. So all the money coming in the organization and all the money coming out of the organization, there's a certain amount of money that an organization needs to make in order for them to break even. And so, of course, anything above that is called a profit. And it's important for companies to make profits so that they can continue to grow their business, right? All right, and the last thing I want to look at is I'm not sure if the book talks about financial ratios. These are really interesting. If you have a moment, you certainly can look this information up. And I don't know if the textbook talks about it offhand, just because we did change textbooks this year. I know the past textbooks talks in depth about the different financial ratios. And so when you're looking at these, you know, numbers don't lie. Now, there can be skewed data, of course. A lot of companies like to, skew their data, but at the end of the day, when you look at financial ratios, companies use these not only for businesses, but also when it comes to lending money. So if you were to go in to buy a car and you needed to finance that car, they're going to run different financial ratios to see what your income to debt ratio is. You could be making $100,000 a year. That's fantastic. But if you have high debt, if you have different loans, credit card debt, a mortgage, and it's a lot, let's put it that way, compared to your income, your debt to income ratio is a good example of that. You're going to have a hard time trying to find a bank to lend you money if you actually can't afford the car payment, right? So these financial ratios are the same thing in business. You have liquidity, which just looks at your short-term debt paying ability. If you had to pay all your debts right now, how quickly could you do that? Could you liquefy your assets and then be able to pay your bills if you had to? It looks at long-term solvency, really the relationship between what the debt you have versus the equity you have. How profitable is your business? And even though you might be breaking even or not making a big profit right now, it looks at your operating success for now and in the future. And then, of course, the market test, which assesses various stocks in the marketplace. All right, and the rest of these slides just kind of go through how to calculate those different ratios. In the old textbook, you had to know how to do that. And I taught that in person. And so we would actually spend some time on that. And now we don't focus on that. We let the accounting classes do that, right? So we took a little bit out, the math out of that class from last year, but I do feel like it's important information. That's why I'm covering it, just to make you aware that it exists. Not that you have to learn it right now, but just that know that there are different ratios and different equations out there that you will have to learn in the future. All right. Of course, then there's ethical and unethical behavior in accounting. So one good example of that is Enron. If you're already familiar with that, you can go ahead and look that up if you're not familiar with it, I should say. So they got in trouble years ago for accounting scandals. And a lot of companies actually get in trouble for accounting scandals. And so because of that in 2002, which used to just be yesterday, but gosh, now it's 22 years ago, they came up with different laws to make sure that companies are not cooking the books, as they like to say. So this is one of those important laws that came out right after the Enron scandal because of what they were doing and how they're interpreting their data. All right, so with that, we are going to go ahead and move to our final assignment. Let's take a look at the final assignment. So you can start to work on this now over the break. I highly encourage you to do that. Keep in mind that your final assignment is due on the 9th of December, which is a Monday. If you do it, if you hand it in early, you get free extra credit points. Trying to encourage you to work ahead. Again, thinking about those dates as not due dates, but more as no later than dates. And so you've actually been able to work on this final assignment since I think September. I forget what chapter it was covered in, but it was definitely covered, I think, in chapter 6. So it was covered in the beginning of the semester. And hopefully you've had that opportunity to look at the final assignment and then started working on it back then. And it should be done. In fact, actually, there's about a dozen of you who have turned in the final assignment already. So that's fantastic. And that's actually a pretty good ratio out of the 45 that are in here. I think there's about a dozen, maybe 10, maybe 12 that have handed it in early. So thank you for that. That's great. Makes your life a lot easier when it comes to the end of the semester, especially if you have other classes. So I know a lot of other teachers don't have everything open for you, and so you can only work maybe 1 or 2 weeks ahead. I've had everything open for you. So in fact, I've had students before get halfway through the semester and be done with the class, which is great. They can work on the other classes then, taking advantage of that. So our final assignment here, you're going to look and develop a business plan. And so the business plan in the textbook goes, it's a 9-step process in the textbook. There's 9 sections. I'm not going to make you go through each 9 sections. It's a little bit long of a final assignment if I do that. So I've taken a few key things out. And so all you need to do is look at these 5 sections, provide these 5 sections. So in the textbook, if you're curious how to write a business plan, there is information in there. You can go back to your glossary, look up business plan, and then you'll find it. And I think it's chapter 6. Don't quote me. That could have been the old textbook, but certainly we'll find that information. There's a page dedicated to it. Please take that up and look. And here, reminding you that there are no text submissions, no links to OneDrive, no URLs, and make sure that you read all of this information. And then 2, there is this down here, business plans, small business plan, how to write your own business plan as well. There's so much information out there. If you want to go ahead and search that up, you're more than welcome to do that. You don't have to use the textbook or the article that I have here for you. You can use that, or you can also look into additional resources as well. One of the things I do want to discuss, though, it's for a hypothetical company. So you don't have to have it doesn't have to be an exact company. It could be a hypothetical company. Either is fine. And then I'm really more concerned about your process and then making sure that you are showing that you're understanding what a business plan is and how you would develop it. So it could be a little bit off. I'm not specifically looking at one of the financial plan. It doesn't have to be exact. I know some of that might be difficult to find, but I just want to see what your thoughts are on how you would go about finding this information and how you would do your cash flow forecast and things like that. All right, if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. And thank you. You're all doing very well. Go back if you are missing some assignments, get those in by the 1st of December. And also, if you please look at your grades to make sure that you don't have zeros. If you have a zero in there and you know you turned in that written assignment, it's most likely because you submitted it by a text submission or a URL link to your OneDrive. Everyone take care, and I'll talk to you soon.